Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Hotseat Devy Show. I am Jack and I am joined once again by the wonderful Phil. He is back. He has his voice. He's here to bless us with those sweet, sweet dulcet tones. How you doing, Phil?
Yeah, really good. Merry Christmas, mate. Obviously, by the time we're recording this in advance, but by the time this drops, it'll be Boxing Day. Christmas will have been and gone. We will be full. We will be one step closer to knowing who our national champion is going to be in college football. Your fantasy season is going to be almost over. Fingers crossed you are still in with a shout of winning your leagues. But yeah, man, I'm doing good. It's great to be back. Like, can I just say as well, right? I had serious FOMO missing our last show because I don't like not being there. I thought you held it down. I thought you gave our listeners some absolutely incredible advice, man. So well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. You're too kind. And yes, Merry Christmas, everybody. This is your slightly delayed Christmas present. You've opened them all, you've trashed all the wrapping, you've stuffed yourself full of Christmas food, and you've got this one little nugget treat present to unwrap on Boxing Day. So welcome to our show. As a caveat, we are obviously going to be talking about a few things in advance. So we are going to mention a few really exciting players to watch for the college football playoffs. And we're going to mention every team that are in the college football playoffs. But obviously, by the time this comes out, some of those teams will be eliminated. So don't shout and scream that we don't know what we're doing and we are terrible college fans because we haven't seen the games. We are analysing this in advance and hopefully what we say and the players we pick out will have lived up to those expectations that we have set for them. But we're going to start with the news, as always, Phil. And where else to start but with your golden boy who won the Heisman Trophy last weekend.
Absolutely. So Fernando Mendoza, after his heroics in the Big Ten Championship, sorry, Jack, sealed the deal and took home the Heisman Trophy. And it is absolutely... I mean, it's a remarkable season, like come kind of full circle for him. And interestingly enough, like I've written a piece for In Between this week, talking about how his Heisman odds fluctuated through the season. I mean, we were kind of aware of him, and I advised you to take some chances on him in late rounds of Devy drafts, like last off season. But he really, I was looking back at the week-to-week kind of top five in terms of the betting odds for the Heisman, and he never made a splash in the top five until week 5, following his breakout game against Illinois. He threw 5 touchdown passes in that game and really kind of burst onto the scene and made everyone sit up and take notice. And all of a sudden, he shot all the way up to the Heisman favorite. He then had a kind of bumpy couple of weeks, and I want to say, I can't remember which game it was off the top of my head now. Maybe didn't play his best ball. And then, amazingly, in week 7, he was back out of the top 5. People were thinking, nah, he's not really a Heisman contender. And then the big moment started to come. The game against Penn State, the game against Oregon, the game, against your Buckeyes. These big moments have never, ever seemed too big for him. And for those of you who just want to hang on to Jack's advice from the last show, he is absolutely a sacrificial lamb in terms of someone that you would be willing to trade away now in Devy to make a healthy profit, particularly if you've already got your NFL QBs on your roster. Mainly because part of this follow-up exercise, I went away this week and I looked at the betting odds right now via FanDuel in the States for the number 1 NFL draft pick. And he is the only candidate at minus odds. Like his last couple of weeks have propelled him to a state where he is looking like the bona fide 101 now. Obviously, going on current rankings, at the time of this going to launch, or at the time of us recording at least, the New York Giants are set to have that pick. The New York Giants will be looking to trade that for a haul because they have their QB in Jackson Dart. But it gives you the reinforcement you need on that advice, that amazing advice that Jack gave you last week. Now is the time, if you invested low, to sell high on Fernando Mendoza. If you don't need him to sell him for the playoff push, if you evaluate your roster, we know that those picks are going to go up right on the eve of the NFL draft. So the more number 1 overall pick buzz he starts to get, the more opportunity you have to cash out for a significant profit. So just watch this space. Absolutely delighted for him. Like, how could you not root for the guy? Like, particularly as you've seen his media profile increase and things like that. But this is about Devy, and this is about making winning moves for your fantasy team. So for that reason, all right, I think your advice last week was fantastic, Jack. He is definitely a sell.
Yeah, I think in terms of Devy, the Heisman Trophy was that next bump that we could have hoped for his Devy value. Now, like you say, if you don't need to sell, if you're out of the fantasy playoffs on the NFL side, then you've got a bit of time to consolidate and see if that value grows. It's not gonna drop considerably. He's the only quarterback that we're talking about who's definitely going to go into the draft and is definitely going to be or at the moment we believe a first round NFL pick. So his value has increased and insulated, and it's kind of the off the field thing that we were hoping for. It feels weird to say that, doesn't it? That you know we've had a whole season of watching Mendoza play really well, play clutch when he needed to, and grip through some tough games and will his team to win. Not all by himself. I'm not discrediting Indiana as a good team, but he's done all of that. But then we still saw the biggest value bump come when he won an award off the field that actually is quite dependent. Certainly this season, I would say the Heisman winner was dependent on how the team did. I feel like going into the Big Ten Championship, certainly odds-wise, Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza were within touching distance of each other. And then you see Indiana win that game, Julian Sayin not have a brilliant game, but arguably Mendoza not lighting it up either. And suddenly the voting differential between Mendoza winning it and Julian Sayin coming in 4th place was huge. So it's weird that we've got this big Devy value bump from an off-field award that was probably determined whether he came 1st or 3rd by the fact that his team made a field goal and Ohio State didn't. But this is exactly what you wanted if you hold him in Devy. And really, Julian Sayin, you know, from a Devy point of view, he's not coming out into the NFL this year. He can't. So this is what we were praying for from a Devy perspective. So great news if you have Mendoza. Gives you lots of options, gives you a stronger footing for those trade negotiations. And if you love what you see and you are going to hold on to him, then great. It's giving you a boost because his NFL draft stock is only going to be increased by winning the Heisman Trophy. We've seen that year after year. Heisman Trophy winners get drafted very highly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely they do. Right. Obviously, at the time of this going to record, we are on the eve of the first round of the college playoffs. There are 4 fantastic looking matchups this weekend for us to get really, really excited about. And I figured rather than preview each game, right, because that's not what we're about here. We're about the players that you want to watch. So we've gone away, and we know that this isn't. We know that some of these schools have got multiple players that you will want to watch. But if you guys tune into the hot seat regularly to see mags and to see the Dynasty content that goes out weekly, you might not know loads of these guys. We're speaking to you like you know all about them. You might not. So here is, a little exercise that Jack and I have put together called one Devy player from every college football playoff team. Now, the challenge there is significant because we can start with the Ohio State Buckeyes where there are multiple position groups, but then you get down the list. We're going to name somebody from all 12. If nothing else, even if they are not going to be Devy superstars, someone for you to watch this weekend and keep your eye on, and who may be a little bit of fun. So, Jack, I'm going to let you start. Let's start with the Buckeyes, okay? There's only one person to suggest, isn't there? If we're going to name one Devy player from each team, there's only one place to start. So let's make it quick, because we do know all about Jeremiah Smith.
We do know all about Jeremiah Smith, and anyone that has tuned into our show has heard his name thrown about here, there, and everywhere. Jeremiah Smith is, that Devy 101 pick. If you're starting up a league this week, he's going 101 in every league, or at least he should be. And if he's not, take full advantage of that. This guy has the full package as a receiver. He is tall, he is strong, he's athletic, he's got great hands. His ability to create separation at any level on the field is incredible. He's 6'3". He is fast, strong, gets the ball, scores touchdowns. You really have to scheme this guy as a defensive coordinator out of the game, and even then it's really difficult to do so. This is the most excited we've been about a wide receiver, certainly entering college. When he entered college last season, we were excited that he was already kind of NFL ready, which sounds ridiculous. So this is the slam dunk Ohio State guy that you want to look out for. You've got a few weeks to wait to look out for him. So catch his highlight reels in the meantime, because the Buckeyes are on a bye for the first round of the playoffs. But yeah, what can we say about Jeremiah Smith? Absolute superstar. Get him on your roster if you can at all costs.
Obviously, we knew he was really, really good, but it was the playoffs last season when he really stepped up and announced himself properly on the kind of national scene. And his sophomore follow-up season has been nothing short of what we expected. You're right. He's the number one pick in Devy, best player in college football, would probably stand the chance of being a top 5 pick if he was to come out in this NFL draft. I say stand a chance. It's pretty much nailed on. But yeah, let's move on. Let's go to Indiana. And we have just spoken about Fernando Mendoza. So it seems silly of us to talk about him again. So I'm going to discuss his kind of big player, alpha, X-profile receiver who is 2026 draft eligible in Elijah Surratt. Big physical outside guy, excellent route runner, strong hands, impressive body control. And he's known for being a reliable possession guy rather than for his top-end speed. What I like about him is he's well-traveled, okay? This is actually his 3rd stop. He's played at St. Francis. He went to JMU with Coach Signetti. Signetti brought him across to Indiana, and he's made the step up, which kind of shows that intelligence, versatility, and toughness. He's a likely day 2 pick. I think the first round is a sniff too far, but we find very, very good, productive dynasty receivers on day 2 of the NFL draft. What I really like this year is when they have needed a player. He's not been healthy all season. He's had a couple of minor injuries and a couple of minor niggles. But when they have needed him, he has come up clutch. If there was a clutch factor rating on these guys right now, he has got to be one of the kind of highest clutch receivers. He's got a contested catch rate of over 60%. Obviously, I realize that's a double-edged sword because are those contested catches coming because he's not getting open? Actually, he just, he does run good routes for a big guy. I think that's the most underrated part of his game. So what he kind of lacks in game-breaking speed, I think he makes up for in that reliability. Tell me what you think about him. Have I sold him short? Is there anything I've missed there?
No, I really like Elijah Surratt. Day 2, and I think we're looking late day 2 if he is to get day 2 draft capital. I think there's just a few question marks around his finesse and his ball tracking and all those like smaller things that you want to see. You want to see someone with really late soft hands so the DB doesn't know the ball's coming that way when they're not looking. But there's no denying his star factor on this offense, and he will certainly be a go-to guy for Mendoza when Indiana hit the playoffs as well. They're also on a bye. This guy, 12 touchdowns this season by itself. With those injuries, that's impressive. He's got 12 touchdowns across the season, and for a possession receiver to be averaging over 13.5 yards per catch, that's really exciting. The fact that this is a guy who is looked for all across the field. Like, he does play outside. He's a big-bodied receiver, but you do see him drift inside. And like you say, that possession receivers need to get the ball quickly so that they can then create their own space after they've got the ball in their hands. So to have 13.5 yards per catch at this stage across a full season, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, rolling on. Let's look at the Georgia Bulldogs. Obviously, first round bye after winning the SEC championship. I want to talk about Nate Frazier. Okay, this is a guy who I've been high on since he came out I loved the high school tape. He flashed as a freshman. This year, he was expected to be the guy in the Georgia backfield. And it's taken him a while to warm up. I think the most exciting thing at the moment is he is hitting form at exactly the right time for Georgia. Measured start, but he's really getting into his stride. Flashing the polishing skill that scouts do want to see. Early in the season, there were some ball security concerns, but actually, when you look, it wasn't that bad. It really did get blown out of proportion, I feel, because Georgia perhaps stumbled, and Georgia were expected to dominate. So when it wasn't happening, you look at the reasons why, and he was an easy scapegoat. His pass protection and receiving ability already are of put my teeth in and try again, of an NFL level. And he profiles as a 3-down back at the next level for me. He might not ever be the flashiest running back, but he maximizes every single play, constantly falls forward. And for me, he's just got that high upside polish that's going to create a skill set and a workload in an NFL running back room. So I still think it'll be interesting to get a real mark of his kind of Devy stock at the moment, because I feel like it's lower than it was. I feel like he's never particularly broken out to the level that we really wanted to see. But towards the back end of the season, he had some really, really big games for the Bulldogs, and was the guy. We've spoken about Chauncey Bowens on the show. We've spoken about Bo Walker again, who we liked as a true freshman who struggled with injuries. But this is a guy who, at the crunch time of the season, is getting the bulk of their carries. And I don't think it's a coincidence. He's warming up, he's getting hot at just the right time. If I'm just looking at his game log now, his last kind of he had 108 yards against Georgia Tech, 52 yards on 13 carries against Alabama in the SEC championship, 181 yards against Mississippi State. He's putting up big-time numbers in SEC competition and high-profile competition, because Georgia Tech were no slouches. I think he is someone you want to keep an eye on, particularly throughout the playoffs, and someone you want to test earners for. He's going to be earned, but he's someone that I would be wanting to test. See if you can get him thrown in as part of a deal. As part of a bigger deal, make him a working part of it that won't be the focal part of that deal, and you may stand to make some healthy profit.
Yeah, and I would say if you own Nate Frazier, definitely hold on to him. This isn't the time to sell, because he's kind of approaching the value that we maybe thought he was going to hold when he was a freshman, before he'd taken a snap. Obviously, we were more excited because the ceiling projection was who knows what this could be. Nate Frazier's a slightly undersized running back, if we're talking about like atypical running backs historically for the NFL, but I don't think we're actually seeing that be a necessity at the moment. I think Frazier has put on a little bit of muscle this season, and part of the production argument is that college football, as the playoffs have expanded, has changed track a little bit. We've spoken how college football is becoming more professional in its own right before going to the professional game in the NFL. And so Kirby Smart's, I'm not saying that coaches don't care about developing players. They absolutely do, and that is a big pitch for getting them to come to your program. But there is a balance of how do we stay healthy and peak at the right time in the season. And therefore, we've seen Frazier not have as many carries as maybe we hoped. Chauncey Bowens kind of came out of nowhere. Well, certainly for me, I wasn't really aware of him, especially as a guy who was going to take the majority of the snaps earlier in the season. And so Georgia and Nate Frazier, the drum that they'll be banging is, we are healthy, we are growing, and we are here to win a national championship. Not, I want the carries, I want the star, I want all of the attention. And I think that's just the way college football has gone. And so we're going to have less data potentially as we analyze our favorite Devy players going towards the NFL, certainly in offenses that go far in the playoffs, because they're going to want to stay healthy. They're going to rotate players and look for optimizing their offense at the right time of the year. So I'm not too concerned. I was concerned about the drops, the fumbles early in the season, but like you say, we basically, I can remember we said he needs a clean slate from here. He basically needs no more fumbles, and he has obliged, which is great news. So those hands are less of a worry. You can always analyze each fumble and be like, this is why it happened. You can make an excuse for every fumble. Once you get to kind of 5, 6, 7 in a season, then you're starting to see a pattern that you can't excuse away. So I'm not too worried about that.
Shall we go back and test our memory? How many fumbles did he have?
I believe it was 3.
2.
Just the 2.
One that was punched out against Alabama, and then he had the one against Austin Peay, which was unforgivable, to be quite honest. But yeah, so this is what I'm saying. So that's no ball on the ground since week 4.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 2 in that first 4 weeks, and it was doom and gloom season. So yeah, I just, like I said, I think he's somebody you want to be keeping a careful eye on. And like I say, we look for players in the college football playoffs that are getting hot at the right time. I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on. Right. Shall we go to Oregon?
Let's go to Oregon, because this is a guy who could be a 2026 prospect. I know you and I are both expecting him to be a 2027 prospect, and maybe hoping that he'll be a 2027 prospect, along the lines of Arch Manning, who has declared that he's going back to school this week. And that is Dante Moore, the quarterback of the Oregon Ducks, who's had a bit of a journey to get to Oregon. So if you do not know this guy, he was recruited as a 5-star quarterback and ended up going to UCLA. He had 1 season at UCLA as a starting quarterback, and he got annihilated, to be perfectly honest. That was an offense that was not set up to protect him, was not set up to complement his ability. And he clearly took some time and reflected and decided to transfer to Oregon, even after they had recruited other quarterbacks in to be the starters. So Dante Moore went to Oregon knowing that he would sit for at least a year and take over as the starting quarterback this season. And boy, has that been a good decision for his development. He has grown and learned the Oregon playbook. He has been coached by an excellent head coach in Dan Lanning and a brilliant offensive coordinator in Will Stein, who has earned himself a head coaching job, as we reflected on the last episode. And Dante Moore has kind of slowly shown progression, and he's ironed out a lot of the things that we didn't like from his tape at UCLA. Now, some of that is on him, certainly his footwork and his reading of the field we didn't love at UCLA. But also, some of that reading of the field we didn't have enough time to do because his offensive line couldn't keep him upright. But he's worked on a few things, and we've seen some really exciting traits come to fruit in this season with Oregon. And I know you and I agree that he's someone who would love to see fine-tune some of those skills with another season at Oregon.
Yeah. Listen, for me, when he's in rhythm, he is arguably the best passer in college football. Just the best pure passer. He throws a beautiful ball, and his accuracy to the kind of field side has definitely improved as the season's gone on. Remaining question really is just based around timing. I think that can still continue to improve. What's really interesting is, like you said, you kind of alluded to it. Will Stein has been brilliant for his development. Obviously, Will Stein is now at Kentucky. And I think had Will Stein stayed, I don't think we'd be even discussing Dante Moore, whether or not it'd be a 2026 or 2027 prospect. But I really do feel that without Will Stein at the helm, and I'm not saying that Oregon won't replace him adequately. Off the top of my head, I don't know who, if they've already made an appointment. And I'm not saying that they won't do it adequately. But the incentive to stay for another year and learn under Will Stein has now been whipped away. So this is going to be a really, really interesting one, because Dante Moore has the skill set. Perhaps he doesn't have the resume after Fernando Mendoza's year, perhaps, but he has the skill set to be QB1 where he's to declare this year. So if you've not watched a great deal of Oregon, if you haven't seen a great deal of Dante Moore, he is going to be great fun for you to watch throughout the college playoffs.
Yeah, my challenge to him, he's not listening to us. Although if you are, please hit us up and guest on our show, please, Dante. My challenge to him is, can he show us his best traits all at once under the spotlight? Because his two biggest games this season were that matchup against Indiana at home and the overtime game against Penn State. Now they lost to Indiana, they beat Penn State, and the plaudits come with the win and the critics come with the loss. But actually, I wasn't thrilled about his performance in either game. I thought he was limited by two good defenses, albeit. But if he is this potentially first-round NFL quarterback, I want to see him. Firstly, I want to see Oregon progress in the playoffs. They have to win their first game. They're playing James Madison, and they should win that comfortably. Well, I want to see Dante Moore step up and have a big game with the national spotlight on him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's certainly got the talent. I just think he's such an interesting prospect to watch because everything regarding his future is so up in the air. Let's go to Texas Tech next. Big 12 champions, Texas Tech. Now, what's really interesting about Texas Tech from a Devy perspective is their success is built massively on a ferocious defense. Lights out pass rush, fantastic play just across the secondary and through the defense. Their offense is almost like, dare I say, the poor relation. And then when you're looking for Devy prospects, well, actually, Caleb Douglas is interesting. Perhaps more as a C2C candidate than a Devy candidate. But in terms of high-profile recruiting, there is a name, and he's kind of been forgotten about and a little bit lost in the shuffle, and that's Micah Hudson. Now, Micah Hudson is eligible in 2027. He, through 2 seasons, has basically done a little more than nothing.
Really?
Yeah, he was a 5-star recruit with ridiculous explosiveness. And interestingly, we talk about peaking at the right time. He flashed in week 14 with 2 touchdown catches, just to remind you that he's there, that he's talented. When you watch the high school tape, it was phenomenal. He accelerates instantly, tracks the ball, elite twitch. Like, the production's not there yet, but the talent is undeniable. And the playoffs are going to be interesting because after doing nothing, but then popping up in week 14, does that earn him some carries? Does it earn some targets? I still feel like you could get Micah Hudson for nothing at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you are patient, I still feel like he's talented enough that it could pay off in a massive, massive way.
Yeah, I agree. And again, you've got a bit of time to weigh up your moves and start discussions on this trade because Texas Tech also have a first-round bye. And this is one of those low-risk, high-reward opportunities. Because like you say, like some people will be absolutely despairing that they spent, maybe the 102 of that Devy draft on Mike Hudson because he was that highly thought of as a recruit on this show and on many other shows. So it's a perfect opportunity to go and get him. Those raw traits are there. We believe they're still there. If it's not a good sign that we're harking back to high school tape in his second year in college, but that twitch, like you mentioned, is so exciting and electric. There is so much potential when this guy has the ball in his hands, and not in the same way as that we talk about Zachariah Branch, where it's like he has to get the ball in space to make something work. This guy can create separation and then use that twitch to call a home run. So yeah, this is if he plays and if he stars, this would be really exciting. This could be the moment that you absolutely win the value of a Devy trade.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, obviously Texas A&M, one loss all season, missed out on the SEC championship game because of how rankings work and head-to-head ties, etc., etc. Tell us a little bit about KC Concepcion.
Yeah, KC Concepcion, Kevin Concepcion, however he would like to be called. Someone that we loved when he broke out at NC State, who showed really exciting route running, great separation and ability to create after the catch. A guy who moved to Texas A&M, and I certainly have held my hand up and said I wasn't a fan of the move at the time, and I was skeptical about how it would work out. But Texas A&M's offense has been a lot more dynamic and a lot more that the wide receivers have been free to do a lot more this season, I would say. Casey Concepcion is also, this shows what a threat he is in open space. He's been the primary punt returner and kick returner for Texas A&M. And yeah, he's done everything that we hoped he would do. So Concepcion had a great freshman season, had a real slump in his sophomore year as NC State just didn't use him in the right way at all. And NC State flattered to deceive. That's some really high expectations for the 2024 season. That did not materialize, and he transferred out as a result. And the move has been excellent for him. Whether KC Concepcion goes to the NFL draft this year or not, we'll wait and see. But he's got an opportunity. Texas A&M are playing Miami. It's a big game in the playoffs. It's a really exciting one because these are two teams that, along with Notre Dame, were kind of fighting each other. The fans on Twitter were absolutely murdering each other for who deserves to be in the playoffs and who doesn't. And now we've got a chance for these teams to show us who deserves to be in the next round of the playoffs. And Concepcion could play a big part in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a guy who I see him declaring in 2026. Because I think he is riding the crest of a wave on that bounce back after that sophomore lull. And people I respect massively in kind of draft circles and things like that are starting to talk about him as the fourth potential first round wide receiver. And I think if he gets that draft capital, or it's looking that way, post the playoffs, he will ride that crest of momentum through to the NFL draft. He is sudden, versatile, thrives in space. You're right about the punt return ability. That adds another string to his bow. High end slot at the next level, and yeah, he's going to be exciting. You're right. This Texas A&M and Miami game is massive because both teams are so similar stylistically, built out through the trenches, high variance QBs. We're going to talk about Malachi Toney in a bit, but one of those two is going to win the game for me. One of those two is going to win the game in the biggest moments. And I think that game is going to be very close, and it's going to go all the way down to the wire. And I can't wait to see what he puts up out there.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this matchup. I'm excited for Concepcion, and if those rumors are true, I'm going to be a very, very happy man because I have quite a lot of shares of KC Concepcion from his freshman season.
Yeah, right. I'm going to talk the Alabama guy. Is that okay?
That is absolutely fine.
Cool. So I'm going to talk about Ryan Williams because ultimately we are talking about Devy profiles, Devy potential. Ryan Williams, we mentioned it on our draft episode with Mags a short while back, is enduring the classic sophomore lull. But nothing for me about his long-term outlook's changed. He still flashes that elite body control, vertical ability, contested catch dominance for a smaller, slimmer-framed guy. The consistency will return. I've got no doubt about it. He was mentioned in recruiting alongside Jeremiah Smith, and for good reason. That upside, for me, still remains intact. I think there's a buy window right now. When you watch the SEC championship game, he had 2 catches on the first 2 drives, and Georgia didn't look like they could handle him. And then because we went behind, the game script moved away from him. We were looking for the tight end, and Ty Simpson started to look for those kind of more short to intermediate throws. This weekend against Oklahoma, if we can control the game, I think you're going to see or have the potential to see a Ryan Williams breakout game, and remind everybody exactly who he is. If it doesn't come, don't panic, right? I like I said, I think there's a unique buy window for someone that we consider an elite Devy asset, because the noise at the moment is very much down on him. And I do think that if you risk it now, long-term patience will be rewarded with a high-impact NFL receiver.
Yeah, I agree that this is your opportunity to buy slightly lower on Ryan Williams. Let's not pretend that we're going to get a cheapest chips bargain on him, because he still had that freshman season. But all the buzz really is time to sell on Ryan Williams, which I just completely disagree with. I think, like you say, the traits and the production are already there. We've seen this before from other wide receivers, but we've also seen Alabama. We've seen Ty Simpson distribute the ball all around the field. This system, the quarterback has completely changed. The style of offense that Alabama have is totally different with Ty Simpson at the helm. And I think that just takes a bit of adjusting to. So yeah, I agree. It's a buy window for Ryan Williams, and it's a really interesting. Oklahoma's defense is incredible. They are a top 3 defense in loads of different metrics, but also just in my mind. You can use metrics to your own agenda every which day of the week, but just watching that defense, they are elite. And so whether we get a breakout this week, I'm not sure. I don't know whether we're going to have a high scoring game. This feels like a low scoring attritional affair to me. And there are a lot of exciting Devy players that could decide this one. So it could be Ryan Williams. It could be Isaiah Horton. It could be Joey Bernard. It could be Ty Simpson. It's probably not going to be Jam Miller, because Alabama cannot run the ball for Toffee. But on the other side of the ball, it could be John Mateer, and we'll touch on him a little bit too, or it could be Dion Burks. There's some really exciting players in this matchup. So this is, alongside the Texas A&M Miami game, this is the best game of the weekend that I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's keep things moving. We've already kind of alluded to him. All right, let's talk about Malachi Toney for Miami. Is it fair to say he's one of the biggest surprises in the country this season? I feel like we knew about him in terms of the buzz that he generated in camp throughout the summer. And we knew that he was a 3-star that had the potential to play above his recruiting pedigree, but he's absolutely blown the doors off it. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. I think he's a guy who, amongst like college fantasy football analysts, this was a guy who outprojected what his star rating was and what his recruitment profile was. This was a guy who everyone was quite excited about from, camp and spring practice, but also just the speed and the fearlessness and the ability to step up and say, it doesn't matter that I'm a freshman, I'm your best weapon, give me the ball. He's grown into the offense. He's done what he's done. I haven't got his statistics in front of me, but he has been incredibly productive for a guy who's slighter, shorter, projects. We're a long way from the NFL because he's a freshman, but projects as one of those versatile slot receivers who could be used all around the field as a chess piece. And we don't say that about many freshmen. The fact that he is demanded that respect and created that rapport with an experienced and intelligent quarterback who I just don't rate in Carson Beck. And I want, right, this is where you're not going to like me, Phil, because I want Malachi Toney everywhere. I do want him. But if we've got windows for buying players and windows for holding players, I think Malachi Toney's sell window is open right now, because the ceiling is high, but it feels like we're talking about him at that ceiling already, and I desperately want him to reach that. And I'm this is where I'm telling people there's a sell window, but if I own any shares, I'm probably not doing it. Do you know what I mean? One of those ones that hurts quite a bit. But if we're going to talk about buy windows, we've got to talk about sell windows, and
of course,
Malachi Toney is in a sell window right now.
Yeah, I would, and the reality of the situation is, if he has a big game at the weekend, when everyone's eyes are starting to turn, people who don't watch college football for the majority of the year and rely on people like us for advice, like, are going to tune into these playoff games, and if he has a big game, you're going to get a swollen and inflated value on him as well. Like, he kind of he presents to me a guy who you could pretty much ask for what you want, and you'll probably get someone who'll pay it at the moment.
Yeah. It feels like we've locked him in as a first round NFL pick already, which would be great to see. I would love to see this guy elevate to that, like, locked in top 5 pick, but we can't do that yet, and therefore the value is there to sell if you can find a buyer. Now, obviously, when this comes out, you'll know whether he's moving on and progressing to the second round of the playoffs or not. They're playing Texas A&M, and this is a Miami wide receiver playing Texas A&M, the matchup we mentioned. This is a game, unlike that Alabama-Oklahoma game, this could be anything. This could be a low-scoring defensive attritional affair, or it could be 35-38. Like, this game could be anything. These two teams, the score variance and the amount of points they've put up and the amount of points they've let in has been ridiculous. So I'm praying for a shootout, and I'm praying that Carson Beck doesn't hand the game to Texas A&M with a few early turnovers.
Yeah, absolutely. I said earlier on, 2 high variance QBs. Texas A&M known for their defense, but down the stretch, it wasn't their strongest part of the game. So yeah, I agree with you. This one could be absolutely anything. It's a great game to watch for a neutral. Right, let's move on to Ole Miss. Let's talk one of the fairy tale stories of the season in Trinidad Chambliss. I was looking down the Ole Miss thing, and I was thinking, right, we know they're good. We know it's a good team. But where's the Devy superstars? And I don't feel like there is a standout Devy name on the roster. So let's talk Trinidad Chambliss, because a year ago, let's be honest, we didn't know who he was. We didn't expect him to have any major kind of footprint. He transfers from Ferris State to back up Austin Simmons. An injury to Simmons meant he got his chance and never let it go. He plays with a calm confidence, that functional athleticism, impressive field vision, protects the ball and distributes it well downfield. Obviously, he's not got a lot of time on task at the D1 level. He plays in that Ole Miss offense that under Lane Kiffin. We have questions about its translatability. But his performances this year demand attention. And I guess my question to you is, I don't think for a moment he is going to be a Devy star. However, I just wonder where you see his value.
Yeah, well, this is a guy who won't be drafted anywhere, because even when he transferred to Ole Miss, I don't think anyone really took that much notice of a guy who was coming from D2 to be a backup. And actually, we're all really excited about Austin Simmons. So Austin Simmons' Devy value has absolutely tanked out the bottom. And Trinidad Chambliss, he's a dual threat. He's a true threat with his legs. But I've also been really impressed with the accuracy and the precision of his passing. Now, he's not perfect by any means. He's not hitting, 78, 79% pass completions. But Ole Miss don't ask him to do that, and they haven't asked him to do that. And I am intrigued by this guy and actually have no real read on what his Devy value is going to be in your Devy drafts in the spring, in the summer, whenever you do your drafts. It's going to be so interesting to see where he is valued amongst the community, because, like you say, we've had a limited amount of snaps and a limited amount of tape. This guy could be the 101 in all your supplemental Devy drafts if someone really believes in the Ole Miss quarterback, assuming he stays at Ole Miss, or if he follows his coach Lane Kiffin over to LSU. Ole Miss fans would absolutely detest that move. That move in itself could elevate Trinidad Chambliss's Devy stock to first round Devy pick in your annual Devy draft. So I'm not talking about startups here, but his value could suddenly peak. So I don't know where the Devy community is going to be on him. I think I feel similarly to you. I don't think that Trinidad Chambliss is an NFL quarterback, and therefore, for me, his Devy value isn't worth enough for me to invest in him, and certainly not if he's going to be taken in the first 3 rounds of any Devy drafts. I'm not interested.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. Playing a 5-round draft, if he's on the board in the 5th and I don't like my options, why not? Why not?
I just don't see it happening. There's going to be someone in your league that doesn't let that happen, and partly because he's so much fun to watch, and that that's a huge tick. And lo behold, me to say that he's not good enough to play in the NFL, because who the heck am I to say that he's not good enough when I am clearly lacking the athletic and physical prowess to be a quarterback. But yeah, he's going to be fun to watch for Ole Miss. Ole Miss, again, should sweep Tulane in the first round of the playoffs. If they haven't, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world, actually. Ole Miss do not have a pedigree of turning up when it really matters, if we're perfectly honest. But I expect them to beat Tulane. And I also expect Ole Miss to be everybody's favorite second team. If they've got a team in the playoffs, this is your favorite next team because of what Lane Kiffin's put them through. So I'm rooting for them until they meet the Buckeyes, if that happens at any point in the playoffs.
Sweet. All right. So let's talk about another QB whose Devy projection has been all over the place this last year. Let's talk John Mateer at Oklahoma. His early season stretch looked like Heisman material. Before that broken thumb on his throwing hand derailed momentum. He is an absolutely fearless gunslinger who is going to win and lose you matchups at any level. If you've got him in CFF, if you've got him in C2C, he's got plus arm strength and creative instincts that can sometimes get him into trouble. You've got to take the rough with the smooth. Since returning, his consistency's dipped. The tools still are there. But what I find really interesting is he has that trust in his arm to a level that deceives him at times and gets him into trouble. I find it really interesting that I think there's a quiet wave of Oklahoma supporters turning on him and saying this isn't going to be the guy. But his aggressive mentality fits a lot of modern NFL concepts. That's the reality of the situation. Another year in college, he's not going to declare this year because I don't think he'd get the draft stock he'd want. Will hopefully sharpen that decision-making and help him find a little bit of better balance and hopefully stabilize that draft projection. But he's one that if I'd have taken him, I would have. You would have liked to have taken him and flipped for a quick profit because it's definitely kind of peaked and is right back down at the moment.
Yeah, yes, that's definitely true. He's someone that you would have liked to have capitalized on when he was, in the Heisman running before his injury. But I feel like we're at exactly the same place we were at with Mateer before the season started. I feel like heading into next season, I'm going to feel exactly the same about him as I did this time 6-7 months ago. I was quite excited by the prospect. Still need to see a little bit more from him, a little bit more like maturity and wisdom, because he's got a true aversion to throwing the ball away. He just believes that he can make a play whatever the scenario around him is. And like you say, that gets him into trouble because he thinks, well, he does have a cannon of an arm, but when he's not fully set, that can get him in trouble. When he thinks he can make a throw and he doesn't quite get the depth on it that he needs. Or this is a guy who is also a threat with his legs, but has he really fine-tuned protecting the football? There's some bits to overanalyze. There's some bits to pick at, but he's a guy who fits our approach to drafting quarterbacks in Devy, in that he was a guy who you would have picked up in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round of your drafts last year, with the opportunity to outperform that pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's going to be in exactly the same position going into next season, assuming he is the starter at Oklahoma next year. I think I'm excited again for that ride to see if he can get fully healthy, if he can learn the playbook a little bit better, and protect the ball a bit. Just it's fine-tuning stuff. I don't want to say he's playing hero ball because that's not true, but there is an element of it which I'd like to see ironed out from his game.
Agreed. Right, let's wrap these last two off in double quick time, because let's be completely honest, these guys are not traditional Devy targets. But I said we would find you somebody in every college football playoff team, and we are not going to let you down. We're going to go to James Madison, and we are going to talk about Alonzo Barrett, the dual threat quarterback. Now, he is not an NFL projection. However, we like to talk to you about C2C. We like to talk to you about CFF. And his college fantasy football value is undeniable. He is a proper dual threat quarterback with a weekly high floor, thanks to some elite rushing production. He's eclipsed 500 rushing yards this season and has scored 14 rushing touchdowns to add to a high power offense that has put up ridiculous points at the G5 level this season. Obviously, the upside for Devy is severely capped, but if you play in a campus to Canton league, his profile is an extremely useful one to know if you don't already.
Yeah, and he'll be fun to watch. If as JMU go up against Oregon, if they're going to make this game interesting or fun, if they're going to put up some points, they're only going to go as far as Alonzo Barnett can take them. He is shifty and elusive in the running game, and he is, against lesser opposition, accurate and a bit of a gunslinger in the pocket. So he's got all the hallmarks of this game against Oregon being either really fun or an absolute disaster for JMU. And I don't really think there's an in-between. So hopefully he has made this game exciting. Whichever way you root, hopefully it's been an exciting game. And we'll see whether our prediction was correct or not.
Yep, absolutely. And then last but not least, we're going to go to Tulane. And this is a guy, the reason I've put him here, I was looking for someone from Tulane that we could talk about. And the reality of the situation is we know that in the Devy community, in the late rounds of those drafts, those supplemental drafts, your league mates, not necessarily you, because you are well educated, you're listening to us, okay? But many have a tendency to helmet scout. And Shaz Preston, now of the Tulane Green Wave, is a former Alabama recruit who largely flew under the radar after transferring. And he's just interesting to watch. He's got good size, reliable hands, solid vertical ability. What he lacks is elite separation. And that's going to obviously cap his Devy upside. He's very unlikely to become a centerpiece. But if you play in deep leagues, so like, for example, I'm in one league that drafts 10 rounds annually, he is worth monitoring. He has the recruiting pedigree. He has a path to volume that keeps him relevant as a developmental asset at Tulane. So, yeah, looking for someone to shout out. I'm expecting Tulane to get nothing short of spanked. I don't think they're going to make it competitive particularly. But if they're going to, it's going to be Shaz Preston who puts up the numbers in their receiving game.
Yeah, and just, he's obviously got some experience in the SEC, not playing loads at Alabama, not getting many snaps, but obviously his head coach, John Summerall, has just been appointed at Florida. So you never know whether there is a route there for him to move back to the SEC and join a Florida wide receiver room that is crying out for a little bit of a spark. They've got a lot of really exciting players that fit a similar profile. You've got Eugene Wilson and Dallas Wilson, who play a very similar role. They have very similar statures and builds. And then you've got Vernell Brown, who is completely different. But they could do with a possession receiver who can play on the boundary. So we'll see. When that's putting a rumor out there. I've not seen that anywhere, but I'm trying to give us a bit more content on Shaz Preston.
Absolutely. Okay, right. Moving on then. Today, at the time of recording, 16th of December, we have had a couple of monumental transfer portal announcements. By the time this drops, Boxing Day, 26th, 10 days from now, there's likely to be a load more. But we just very quickly wanted to update you on some of the key Devy names that have entered the portal. In a little section that we are going to wrap up now, called Transfer Portal Palooza. We are going to throw the names out there. We're not going to deep dive the players. We're just going to talk very quickly about whether right now we consider them a Devy stock up, stock down, and where we expect them to be. So, starting off with the announcement in the last 24 hours, we have had 3 fairly high-profile QBs enter the portal. Florida's DJ Lagway, Nebraska's Dylan Raiola, and Michigan State's Aiden Childs. Obviously, the first domino to announce his kind of name was DJ Lagway. He was heavily recruited by Billy Napier. He's very much a staunch Billy Napier guy. So when Napier lost his job earlier in the season, we asked the question at the time, what will happen to DJ Lagway? Jack, just give me a quick stock up, stock down on DJ Lagway, where you think his future lies and what he's got to do for you.
Yeah, DJ Lagway's stock is firmly flat at the moment. I'm quite happy to be holding him, waiting to see where he'll transfer. I think it's fairly obvious that he's going to transfer somewhere that is going to boost his stock. He's going to go to a high-profile program. He's still a high-profile recruit with great traits. An absolute blistering arm and electric legs. So I'm not worried. I'm excited for where he's going to land. If you are following our theory and for some reason you already own Lagway, because we would have warned you against that, when he commits somewhere is when I'm selling him straight away, because his value is going to spike if he goes to an LSU, or I don't want to theorize where he might go because it's too fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a dangerous game. What I would say, though, in terms of projecting, is his next move is massive. And if he finds himself in a spot with a head coach with a reputation for developing quarterbacks, or an offensive coordinator with a track record for QB development, I think he's going to be very selective in where he goes. So, watch this one with interest. Then there's Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola has announced that he's going to move on from Nebraska, or intends to move on. I think this is a great decision for a very, very talented QB who kind of bucked the trend in terms of recruiting. He was highly chased by Georgia, amongst others, and made the decision to go to Nebraska, his father's alma mater, and has given them 2 years of great service. He's been the face of that franchise. He's the only one of that highly rated 2027 crop to start as a true freshman. He's got 2 years' time on task, but Nebraska, I just feel like it's the right time for Dylan Raiola to move, to give his stock a bump. He is, for me, the professional's professional in terms of how he approaches stuff. And this is a professional, this is a business move to secure his NFL draft stock. I think he's made a great start across 2 years. He's put on tape some traits and some flashes, but he doesn't deserve to be hampered by the rest of the Nebraska football team, and is now going to put himself in the best position possible.
Yeah, I mean, he went to Nebraska to try and kickstart kickstart revamping that program back to the heavy heights that Nebraska once was. At the Cornhuskers were, a powerhouse of college football, and hasn't really been backed up with that. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to be the first one, you need to be the first one with a few waves coming behind you. And it doesn't feel like he's had that at Nebraska, which is a shame, because I'm not an advocate for leaving mediocre programs mediocre. I'd love to see them elevate higher. Now, whether Dylan Raiola would be able to do that anyway, we'll see. There's some good things on tape. There's some bad things on tape. His landing spot's going to be really interesting. The one rumor I've seen is that if Dante Moore moves on, that Oregon would be interested, which would be a magnificent move for Dylan Raiola. Baby Mahomes would have great opportunity to grow and develop there. Now, I'm going to have to leave you tonight, so I'm going to say Merry Christmas, Happy Boxing Day, and I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Phil to tie off this episode. But I hope you have all had a wonderful holiday, and I will catch you soon. Phil, you're on your own, my friend.
Yeah, man. Well, after you taking care of the last show, I'm sure I can do the next 10 minutes. There's also other QB movers. Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati is one to watch. Kenny Minchie, who lost the Notre Dame job to CJ Carr, as announced, he's going to enter the portal. And then Aiden Childs, dual threat, needs another year, but there is talent to work with. It'll be really interesting to see where he goes. And then Sam Levitt, I know Jack mentioned him in the last show. Sam Levitt is leaving Arizona State. Rumors that he might be one on the way to Miami. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that. Miami, obviously, in the last couple of seasons, have utilized the senior transfer, or graduate transfer market incredibly well. Running backs, really interesting. 3 kind of bigger name running backs entered the portal so far in Dylan Edwards. And then the Texas duo, CJ Baxter and Jarrett Gibson. Now, both of these guys were high recruits, as you would expect if they land at Texas. Really interesting to see both going. CJ Baxter obviously has struggled with injuries. He has at times flashed, looks to have lost ever such a slight yard of pace, and maybe might not quite be the guy he was pre-injury, but there is still loads of talent there. Jarrett Gibson, again, has just found himself in a bit of a logjam, I think, behind Trey Wisener, behind CJ Baxter coming back. And he's a talented back with decent pass catching acumen who looks set to make an impact somewhere else. Obviously, last show, Jack mentioned Nick Marsh being the standout wide receiver named to enter the portal. 2 more wide receivers of note at the moment in Perry Thompson at Auburn, a former 5-star recruit. In fact, there are 3 Auburn receivers in the portal at the moment. Horatio Fields and Malcolm Simmons have also entered the portal. The only one yet to announce it is entering the portal is the one we are all crying out to enter the portal in Cam Coleman. So maybe if all these guys go but Cam Coleman stays, he'll get all the targets. So let's just wait and see. The final name I want to mention is a guy probably not that Devy relevant at the moment, but he has put up some outrageous production this year at San Jose State, and that's Danny Scudero. And I know the eye rolls like, oh, San Jose State, it's the scheme, it's the scheme, it's the scheme. This is the guys that made, they're a program that puts up elite wide receiver production that perhaps hides the player's skill set and kind of kids you into overthinking and overbelieving that there might be something there. But Scudero seems a little bit different. He's crafty, good route runner, has more of the basic skill sets and kind of components that you would want to see than some of his peers. And I just wonder what his market share is, where he could end up. And he's definitely a name to watch for your supplemental drafts next year, dependent on where he ends up. Nick Nash, that's the name I was trying to think of. Nick Nash. Obviously, people might be duped by the fact that Nick Nash put up such lordy stats in the same offense and think, well, Danny Scudero is just another one of the same kind of ilk. he isn't. He wins differently. He definitely has a higher floor in terms of the skill set. So really, really interesting to see where he ends up. That's really, guys, all we've got time for. Merry Christmas again. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Obviously, if your team are at the time of going into this on the 16th of December, if you are supporting one of the college football playoff teams, I hope your team wins. Best of luck to you, unless you're an Oklahoma fan, in which case, roll tide. We cannot wait to see you in the new year. The next time we see you, it'll be 2026. We will be even closer to those that national championship, to your Devy drafts, to your Dynasty drafts. Enjoy. Good luck in any games you've got coming up in the kind of final weeks of your season. In the meantime, you can check out all of the amazing content on the Dynasty Hotseat. All right, there's content coming out daily over our YouTube page. Mags and his worst team ever. The Dynasty Show with the incredible Ali, Mags, and James. And then check us out every fortnight, drop-in Fridays for you. There is content pretty much every day of the week from this awesome team. So if you don't already, please make sure you like and subscribe. Listen. Thanks for checking us out. See you in a fortnight for more Devy goodness. Peace.